Let's Talk JMMA with Charlie Jewett from sogo-kaku.com. This is a podcast about the deep end of the Japanese combat sports scene. I'm your host, Shu Hirata from On the Road Management. Now, let's begin. Hi, Charlie. Good morning.
Good morning, Shu. How you doing? This is the first time we've ever been on the same side of the world together.
Yes, you're in Indiana. I mean, actually, Las Vegas. So
Okay.
it's what is it, like 8 o'clock there? No, what time is it out there?
It's 10.
10. Okay, well, it's 7 a.m. here. And so, since you're in the States, were you able to see Mr. Mayweather versus Asakura?
I didn't watch it live. But it was so cheap on Fight TV. I just kind of had to buy it afterwards. So
Yes. And let's talk about that, because I want to talk about this article that was up on ESPN and says that Mayweather was supposedly making $20 million for this fight.
I mean, let's first somewhat hesitant to believe any financial number that Mayweather throws out, because part of his whole gimmick is about how much he gets paid.
Sure, right.
So it benefits him to say that he gets paid a lot of money.
Right, of course. Because that's his PR, right.
I don't think he got paid anywhere near $20 million. No, I think he made millions, but I don't think it's over $5 million personally. But.
Well, here's what it is. Last time was like a $10 million, right? Because remember, he flashed the cash on Instagram and everything else. And I know this was like a so-called, like almost like a 2-fight contract. It was like 1 fight with 1 option to extend.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to believe it becomes double, right? And on top of that, considering that how yen has been very, very weak versus dollars, 20 would probably feel like 28 for Sakakibara now.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's correct.
He already has his next exhibition scheduled. So I think this was just for him a very easy couple million. Go make some fans in Japan, and then have his big exhibition that's already scheduled a couple weeks later.
But here's what it is. I know how top talents in the world, and not only U.S., will think. I don't think he would never go back there with a little bit more raise. You know what I mean? So if he got paid $10 million last time, or $9 million, or whatever that is, I think it would be a little bit more than the money he made the last time.
Maybe, but I mean, that had the option. Maybe this contract doesn't have the option for the +1.
Maybe not. But again, even though you don't have a +1, but here's what it is. I mean, I don't think he's getting jammed with the calls for offers for exhibitions from all over the world, like he says. I really don't think so. I think this trend is not going to last that long.
Right.
So I think the RIZIN to Mayweather is like a very good ATM machine. Oh, sorry.
I also think there's some element that I noticed after he did this last time, RIZIN was helping him promote something that he was trying to get started that got stopped because of COVID.
Right.
There's always a booth with like his goods, and he was trying to I think start a gym or something in Japan.
Yeah, something like that. Mayweather, I wouldn't be surprised because he has a gym all over in the U.S. I wouldn't say all over, but there are a few places in the U.S. he has that. So
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some understanding that RIZIN is helping him with his business in the Japanese market. It's a notoriously difficult market to enter if you're not Japanese.
Right.
So there might be that kind of payment as well. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's people banging on his door, because not many people can afford to pay him for the amount of attention he brings.
Right, exactly. And it's not like he's like a super household name in Japan.
Right.
He's not like Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali back in the 70s and 80s.
I will say I did notice a lot more Western media coverage of this.
Right, yeah.
So if that was RIZIN's goal, well done, because normally those websites take a couple of days to post the results, but there was almost immediate results about it from all of the big MMA websites in the U.S. So if their goal was to get global attention, I think it worked.
Right, it worked. Now, do you think Mikuru Asakura got famous because of this, or because I see some headlines didn't even mention his name in the
No, but while I don't think he looks famous,
Mm-hmm.
I think he comes out of it better than Tenshin did.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Right.
Because he actually landed some good strikes on Mayweather
Mm-hmm.
before he got knocked out. And Tenshin had that whole crying thing afterwards.
Right. Right. Right.
Kind of looked like a child fighting a grown man.
Mm-hmm.
And Mayweather comes out of it looking much more respectable. And you can always I lost to the best boxer of all time, but I hit him really good a couple times.
Right. So, but the sad thing is that we all know that I think the guy who stole the headline from this show is not a fighter, right?
Oh, is it? What's the guy's name? Takeru?
No, in Japan, everybody's talking about that guy who was supposed to give a flower to Mayweather right before the fight, but he dropped.
What's his name? Takeshi Okuno or something?
Yeah, Takeshi Okuno. He's one of the guy who started the political party in Japan called Gobo no To. And they kind of, hire Mikuru Asakura as a sort of like a consultant or whatever the title is. And he actually paid, almost like $35,000 NFT to get a right to give that flower in the ring. And he dropped it. And according to him, I guess it's a message to the world that Mayweather has no respect. He's only talking about the money and blah, blah, blah. Now, that's basically stole the headline in Japan.
Yeah.
Now, we're not hearing that too much in the States.
Right.
Now, what do you think about that? Because right now, nobody's really talking about Mayweather Asakura now. Everybody's talking about this guy Okuno.
When I watched it, it kind of reeked of pro wrestling to me.
Mm-hmm.
Of this will get a lot of attention, so do this.
Yes.
Because it didn't really seem to bother Mayweather, who just immediately leaned over and picked him up. And it might have been real, but to me it seemed like a pre-orchestrated, this will get a lot of attention. And I think RIZIN's at the point where they're just saying any attention is good attention.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's not related to us. It'll bring more eyes to the sport. But that's about it.
Right. And also it's a good point you pointed out the pro wrestling, because in the world of pro wrestling from the 70s, it's very customary to bring in even politicians to the ring to give out the flowers and stuff like that. And we really didn't see that in too many fights in RIZIN, right? In today's MMA, only specific fights, and when they have some big sponsor who basically wants to give a flowers. But in this shows, I noticed that they sold the rights to give flowers in the ring to the fans.
Well, I think they had
a lot of flower presenters in this RIZIN show.
With the yen tanking, I think they had to squeeze every yen they could.
Oh yeah, I know. Yen's tanking really bad. I'm feeling it too. But anyway, so this guy's getting no headlines, but it's not that big a deal, I think.
I find it hard to believe he would do that if he's part of Mikuru's crew without Mikuru knowing about it in advance.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe not. Maybe he just wanted to be famous. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But apparently, this is the man who made a lot of money from some cosmetic industry, whatever. I don't know so much about it, but he has a lot of money, enough money to start the political party.
Yeah.
And he called Bob Sapp and Peter Arts to their political speech on the streets and stuff like that. So he's basically, in a way, it's a joke, right? I mean,
he gets that FU money where it doesn't matter what people say about him.
Exactly. And, in Japan, they're very known for having a very weird looking political parties in the past, so it's not that big a deal. So I think this is the last time we hear about the guy, right? Probably.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think it'll stick because it's just not bad enough to stick, I think.
No, I don't think so. People forget. So
it might stick to him, but it has no relation to RIZIN.
No.
So I don't see why it would stick to them at all.
No. And also, it's just too bad that it's just he's just stole the headline, because that RIZIN 38 show, I thought was a very, very good show.
Yeah. No, it was perfect. It was the perfect rebound, because in hindsight, RIZIN 37 had so many problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they fixed a lot of it, and a lot of things happened by chance. RIZIN 37 had barely any finishes. It ran over an hour long.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like a slog fest. This was a shorter card. They started it earlier, which I thought was a brilliant move.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should just start them earlier. If they're going to do it on a Sunday show, I think they should just start it earlier anyway.
Mm-hmm.
and had a ton of finishes. The fights that weren't finishes were exciting, and it didn't feel like an overstretched product.
Oh yeah.
So I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you just pointed out the fact that a lot of finishes, but that the fight that didn't go to finish were exciting too. And I think personally that Okubo against Kim was the best fight of the evening. I mean, that went to the decision.
That fight was crazy. That was also kind of say, before this fight, I said numerous times, it is crazy to me that the rationale between this fight was that Okubo was coming back from injury. He's not ready for Horiguchi. So we're gonna give him Kim, as if Kim is like easy opponent.
I'm telling you, Kim is probably one of the best fighter in bantam and featherweight in Asia. I mean, this guy is amazing. I mean, I know he came back from retirement, right? And I know he fought some featherweight champion. He got knocked out or something, but it was a flash thing, and he came back and won. You know, I'm telling you, this guy is one of the monster in Road FC. So yes, I agree with you. I was so concerned about this fight because, from the managers of Naoki Inoue's point of view, if Okubo drops this fight, that will lower Naoki's value. Period. Oh yeah, for sure. And when they announced this fight, I'm like, oh my god, you know, like I really don't think Okubo got a chance here. So this is what happened. Yeah. And now fans thinking, oh, Sucho Kim should be fighting Horiguchi. Yeah, sure, but do you think that's going to happen? I don't think so, because he's a Road FC champion. He's 135. Horiguchi talking about going down to 125 now, right? And do you think Bellator will allow him to fight the guy? I really don't think so.
I don't think they would let it happen, because I think he can beat Horiguchi.
He will be Horiguchi, I think.
I mean, Horiguchi could win, but I think it would be a competitive fight.
Very tough.
RIZIN wants to risk Horiguchi losing to a non-Japanese fighter.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, well, anyway, so, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with the RIZIN's bantamweight, because now, to me, that whole big bantamweight Grand Prix that took place last year, it has zero meaning now.
Well, that's what's so funny. I remember I was talking to Andrew from the We Are Rising podcast and Jamie from the Discord, and that tournament literally meant nothing.
Nothing right now. Right.
Because after the tournament, all the fighters were so beat up that they couldn't fight for like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then the winner didn't get to fight Horiguchi, which was the whole point of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
A meaningless thing that happened in 2021.
Yes. Very. Man, and another Korean, Sui Park, you know, basically, you know, dominated Hamasaki in this fight. Sure, Hamasaki broke her arm and blah, 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 but she was better, you know?
Oh, yeah, completely. So Hamasaki's age is starting to show.
Oh, for sure.
And she's been training for these past couple fights down in Hiroshima with Sasaki.
Mm-hmm. And Megumi Fuji.
I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but I don't know if it's doing her any services. But that just might be something that's happening. It may have nothing to do with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem in this fight is Siwoo Park was just way too fast for her.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And Hamasaki was never like a speedy fighter per se, but she never even got close to touching Siwoo Park.
No, not at all. Yeah.
And
Siwoo Park is better and better every fight, you know?
And I'll say Crazy B has its problems.
Mm-hmm.
The one fighter who seems to have really benefited from training there is Siwoo Park.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's because her striking is already so good that all she needed to work on was wrestling. And if Crazy B can teach one thing, it's how to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
What I was impressed with was when Hamasaki got Siwoo Park down, Siwoo Park got back to her feet so fast, she gave Hamasaki no chance to do anything on the ground.
Yeah, zero time to set up, nothing. Yeah, there's no ground control opportunity there.
I was so Siwoo Park, even though she's 31 years old, she kind of had like a late start to her MMA career.
Mm-hmm.
And with her and Anastasia and Seika Izawa, it really feels like this new generation is emerging.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Because I know Anastasia is 0-2 in RIZIN, but in those 2 losses, I thought she was very impressive.
Oh, yeah, I know she looked much better. She just made a mistake at the end, you know, that's all. Yeah. You know, I'm telling you this right now. So I think Izawa against Park is going to be a very tough fight for both. It's going to be hard to make any predictions, and I would not be surprised if the Park wins.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. So I'd like to point one thing out. Their first fight was incredibly competitive.
Yes.
But I
It
would
was
say
a controversial finish too, so he really did not have any finish, right? So
I'd be interested because that fight was in a cage.
mhm.
I always thought a cage favored the wrestler.
Yep.
I'm kind of interested to see what happens in a ring where Park has more room to move around, like she did
Oh,
against Suzuki.
And she had more room to sprawl out too.
Yeah,
You know?
and I'm kind of interested to see what happens.
Mhm.
Because the first fight was so close, and they've both gotten so much better since that fight.
Right?
But Siwoo Park, I mean, she knocked Hamasaki down. She does damage with her strikes, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Right. Now I'm gonna have to mention this. I've heard a rumor that Park were saying that, oh, if I beat Hamasaki, I think I can go to UFC. Now, when I hear that comment from the fighter, I always ask that fighter, don't you want to take a look at the contract that you signed? Because if you're in this Grand Prix, my gut feeling here is that if she wins the whole thing, she must have some kind of championship clause
If
where
she
she
doesn't,
gets to go to UFC immediately.
if they don't have that, that'd be insane, especially after Hamasaki left.
Right.
I'm fairly convinced that she's managed by Deep.
No, I think she's managed by her boyfriend, no?
Osego Yamamoto?
Yeah.
Well, she has a very close relationship with Deep then, and they were the one that got her the visa.
Right. So, no, I heard that. So I'm just a little bit concerned here because I'm hearing the rumor that UFC trying to do the Korea show in February.
Oh.
So for her to win that on New Year's Eve and go to UFC Korea show is like a perfect route. But again, that means she would have to sign that contract immediately after the New Year's Eve or whatever. So
I don't
know if that's even possible contractually, you know?
I think she has mentioned wanting to fight for the UFC in the past.
Yep.
Which I think is a great goal.
I think so too, right?
My problem is she's very strong and fast at 105 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't translate to 115.
Exactly. 115 is a big girls out there, yeah.
All she has to do is look at her former training partner, Hamasaki, who at one point in time, if not still, was the best atomweight in the world. But when she went to the UFC, struggled a lot.
Struggled, yeah. Yeah, I know. So, but again, Park, she's 31, I think. So, I mean, for her, she would probably feel like this may be the last chance to go to the UFC, right? So, I hope her and herself and the management, everybody understands the contract, so it won't have any problem, you know, or issues. It happens a lot in Japan. Like, it really annoys me because people just don't read contract.
Yeah,
you know. So I hope that doesn't happen. So besides these two fighters, I thought these two other guys, Horiguchi and Gustavo, were the two other notable fighters in RIZIN 38.
Oh yeah. Well, Horiguchi had a little scare in the beginning. But
yeah, just a little scared, but it was a flash down, you know. And
he was up in the air, but
I think because of how Patricky and also Sergio fought Horiguchi, now everybody knows the way to fight him to look for that counter shot.
Right. So
you don't necessarily control by throwing shots. You control by taking positions in the center of the ring or the cage, and you wait for his shots when he comes in. So that worked okay, but I think obviously it revealed. Like Mr. Hagira, both Kintaro-san, they both got almost zero ground game. So the fighters like that, you would not. I mean, it would be very easy to beat if you have a total MMA technique.
Yeah,
you know. So they would have to go back to the grappling MMA 101. I think.
Matt Brown clearly wanted to fight on the ground.
Oh, obviously, right? Yeah, obviously, right.
Once it got there, he got to mount several times, almost immediately.
Immediately, yeah.
I have a question about that fight for you, not about the fight itself. Did you notice that Kintaro blacked out his tattoo?
Oh, I didn't notice that, but I think that's right, yeah. There's something about the photos so he had to, huh?
Do you think he's trying to, it looked like he literally tattooed over it, black ink.
Right.
Do you think he's trying to like remove himself from his reputed past?
You know, okay, I let's talk about this. Now, do you know about the the conversation between Kintaro and Saeki got leaked?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe about 2 weeks ago, there's a website called Blast News in Japan. They're famous for leaking like Sakakibara's conversations and blah blah blah. Anyway, they leaked a conversation taped between Kintaro and Saeki 2 years ago.
Okay.
Now, in that conversation, it revealed the fact that Kintaro has this deal, exclusive merchandising deal with somebody in Osaka who is not from the good part of the society, you know? So he's demanding a merchandising rights, but the RIZIN wants to make a merchandise, so you're gonna have to cut tie with this guy. But the Kintaro say, "Oh, I know this guy for almost 10 years. I can't do it." Blah blah blah. So this whole conversation got leaked, but this was taped 2 years ago, obviously from the Kintaro side. Now, so Kintaro is obviously with this guy who is really not a, I wouldn't say Yakuza, but it's close to that part of the world, who is with him. So I don't think
anti
relationship. I really don't think he can.
Yeah.
I mean, the tape got revealed like 2 weeks ago. This was taped 2 years ago. And if I was Saeki, I would feel shocked. I would feel betrayed.
As these promoters, I would stop having these types of phone conversations.
I will too. Exactly right.
It's like they don't learn.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't understand that. And stop sending emails if you don't want that email to be revealed to somebody, right? So the only way is, I guess, you would have to meet them in person if you don't trust them, or just say or write something you just don't care if you get revealed. So
yeah,
that's what I do actually. I always tell you, go ahead, reveal it. I don't care, because there's nothing really for me to hide or be embarrassed about because I'm doing straight deals. But anyway, so I just because of that, I'm not sure the Kintaro can cut tie with these people completely.
Yeah.
I think maybe for Abema TV purposes or whatever the purposes, I think that he had to do that, obviously. Yeah. I think it's same like anywhere in the world. Once you're associated with that kind of people, you kind of have to stick with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
I thought it was an interesting move.
Yeah.
But interesting.
Yeah. So, but again, so Kintaro didn't win. I mean, he had that moment in the beginning, but that's about it. I don't think that raised his stocks up.
You already mentioned it. I want to say, do you think the biggest loser of the event is Hagiwara?
I think so, in a way.
Because I feel like they were handing him Suzuki on a platter as this is a guy that you can beat. And the fact that Suzuki choked him out has to be humiliating because he's a kickboxer.
Yeah, but Suzuki had that prior pancreas experience. You know what I mean? So he's not a guy got the kickboxer who has zero MMA knowledge. He had 5 fights there, right? So
I know, but it's still when he lost to Koike, you could say, well, he was never supposed to win that fight, and he had a good moment.
Right. So
Suzuki is many, many levels down.
Oh, I know. So here's what it is, Charlie. If you want to blame somebody, the person to be blamed is his manager and his coach.
Yeah.
Because they should have known that this is a tough one. I mean, in terms of RIZIN, is in a way, it's a big show. So you have a Horiguchi and all these world top fighters. But there are some portion of the show, it's entertainment division, right? It's like a talent. Right. And also there's some portion of the shows where all the Japanese fighters are in it. Face it, those Japanese fighters are the same level as fighters in deep Pankan Shuto. Right. Just because of the pandemic, they got the opportunity to come into the RIZIN. So some sponsors, I told you in this podcast before, that some sponsors told me that today's RIZIN is sort of like a deep Shuto Pankas just happened to be doing the bigger venue. So yeah, in that sense, yes, a guy like Suzuki or even Hagira, they would need. I mean, Hagira would need much lesser experience, MMA experience opponent. And I think since Hagira is very popular and he's a ticket seller, obviously, so it's kind of important commodity for RIZIN. I think this is a point when RIZIN just have to realize that they really need to give him the opponent that he really can handle.
I feel like they set up an opponent who's coming off that scandal where Hagiwara was able to do some great trash talking before the event.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're trying to set up an event where he could win.
And I think they tried to Yeah.
Hagiwara's manager and coach are to be to blame because if they look at Suzuki versus Ren, they would realize that when Suzuki faces a striker, he tries to grapple. That's clearly what he's going to try to do in this fight.
Right.
Like they didn't prepare for it at all.
No, not at all. And yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. But I think RIZIN, they do the matchmaking, of course, to hopefully thinking this person is going to win, whatever that is. But also at the same time, they wanted to hype up the event, and this was, I think, the way to do it. So I think they realized maybe they could have gone either way, because even though Suzuki was involved in scandal, quote unquote, but he's still a popular fighter. And now because of this scandal, he really have no place to go about RIZIN, right? In a way. So, I mean, I think in a way it's a win-win situation for RIZIN because they can still make a start of Suzuki.
Do you think Yoshiba is happy in jail that her former boyfriend won?
I don't even know. Does she get a TV time in jail in Japan?
I have no idea. I doubt it.
No idea.
I doubt it. Incredibly.
Right. Now, Horiguchi, let's talk about that. Now, has said publicly after the fight that he is thinking about going down to 125.
Yeah, I think he should.
He should. Now, is there a flyweight men's division in Bellator? And there are rumors circulating that they're going to do the flyweight. Now, I don't know if it's even official or not, but I'm not sure because I don't know if there's going to be enough talents there.
Yeah.
So
he needs to move down though, because I think he kind of got lucky when he won the title.
Oh, I agree. Right.
The guy that he beat had just no fight IQ at all.
Yeah, I know.
Now he's just too small. He's getting hurt, and he needs to go back down to his natural weight class.
I mean, he got lucky with Caldwell. I mean, win's a win. Let's give him all the credit in the world, but still, all the other guys that he beat were Cape, Okubo, flyweights, McCall, right? I mean, there aren't that many bantamweights he kind of beat in his bantamweight career. So, yeah, I agree. I think he should go back because of his age. I would love to see him back in the UFC again, but I don't know. Let's talk about this one because I just signed new fighter, right, to the UFC, Yamato Nishikawa. He's 19 years old and 9 months in sign. So he beat the record of Naoki Inoue, 19 years old, 10 months. And he will be stepping into the octagon as a 19-year-old, opposed to Naoki, who stepped in the octagon as a 20 because he turned 19 before the fight. So obviously now Nishikawa is the youngest Japanese to sign with the UFC. Now you saw the Contender Series just signed 17 years old. Kinoshita got signed to 22 years old. I think Kyra is 22 still. So obviously UFC is going for a younger talents, right?
Interesting because it kind of went through this phase where they weren't signing Japanese fighters. Now it seems like they're signing a lot of them.
You know what? This is what I realized. I'll tell this on. I mean, I knew it for years and years, but I will tell this first time in the public. But I think UFC is almost like a very, very spoiled rich daughter, like a Paris Hilton. Yeah. She got so many things she wants to buy, but she wants to buy on her own timing, right?
Right.
You want to be pushed. And when she needs it, she wants to just buy it. And that's how they do the business pretty much. They offer fighters a deal or fight offers. So, yeah, I mean, I think it got lucky in a sense that because Abu Dhabi does not require vaccines and Nishikawa and his whole family are against being vaccinated. So they have declared that they will never be vaccinated. So the bottom line is that I think UFC is not ready to accommodate those unvaccinated fighters because there are countries opening up, right?
Right.
And like you have European shows like UK, which they're going to have a lot of UK shows, obviously. So they can put a lot of unvaccinated fighters there. So that's one of the reasons they're signing these new unvaccinated foreign fighters as well. But yeah, in terms of, I think, the Japanese and stuff like that, I think matchmakers, I really think they have their own, like maybe ranking or list outside the UFC. They'll probably go through that list. And that list, that what country they're from, really is not a priority from their point of view, Well,
I think it's only a priority if they have a show coming up in that place.
Exactly, right. Let's say if you're showing Japan, sure, you want to try to get a local guy or girls in it, right? For the news and stuff like that. But yeah, most of the time, because who cares about the Nishikawa in Abu Dhabi? It's not like there's a big Japanese population there,
Yeah. So his record is nuts for a 19-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't he have like over 30 fights?
Yeah, almost. And he's on a 14-fight win streak. I mean, think about it. How can you be on a 14-fight win streak at age 19? Right? Yeah.
Very
But
cool.
at the same time, I must admit, it's not like he fought all the top competitions top all the time, right? Because he's been fighting for Shuto, so he had some tune-up fights, warm-up fights, good title fights, or fought in the welterweight. So the bottom line was that he really had nobody else to fight anymore.
Yeah.
Unless he goes to RIZIN or somewhere else.
Right.
But within the Shuto, he had no place to go.
Right.
And for him to get an opportunity to go to UFC, considering the fact that he's unvaccinated, I mean, it was no brainer for him to take it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, so I think being Japan or Japanese, it really has nothing to do with the UFC point of view. They want to pick up those young guys with a good record and have a good finishes.
I wasn't saying that. I was just saying that it just seemed like it had been a while since a Japanese fighter. Kinoshita seemed like the most recent fighting in a while.
Right. We had to go through the contender series. So it's
Right.
not like the Hagira or the Sato or the Mizuki or Kanako. And Kanako basically had to win the Invicta title, right? So.
And Mizuki got in as like a last-minute replacement.
Chinese, right? So it was a China show. So again, it's about the timing,
Speaking of getting into the UFC, have you seen those crazy Ren Nakai posts recently, where she's like flexing in front of a castle?
Let's talk about that since you mentioned great, because I was prepared for this too. Oh my God.
She's like wearing like booty shorts and a tank top, flexing in front of a castle. Is that
one by one? Then let's talk about this one first.
Okay.
I will sue anyone who interferes with my UFC negotiations or my activities. Forced obstructions of business. I don't know what that means, but I worked hard for everything in life to become UFC champion. If I don't make it to the UFC, I will die.
I don't know from a Japanese legal standpoint.
Yeah.
But from an American legal standpoint, to sue someone from business interference is like nearly impossible.
It is impossible, right? Almost.
You have to like prove that it's like they're doing it like spitefully, all of a sudden, and that it's not benefiting them in any way whatsoever. You don't have to be nice. There's no law that says you have to be nice to someone.
Right.
There's no law that says you can't talk bad about someone.
No.
It's
very hard to prove how they interfere her business.
It would be expensive. You'd have to have an investigator.
Exactly.
Investigator to go and do that.
That's the point. I tweeted that if they got so much money to really hire a legal to do this kind of lawsuits all over the place and declare that kind of thing, I don't know why they ask for those gift certificates and rice from the fans and supporters, And I'm telling this right now, I think at this point, she should stop tweeting. I mean, this is just very negative effect. I mean, who would want to touch her? I mean, who would want to do a business with somebody like this?
This tweet especially, I find more troubling than the last one. Because this one shows me, you have no idea what you're doing.
Right. If anyone knows a better way to get into UFC, please let me know. What does it mean?
Well, clearly, so let's break it apart. She says, there are a lot of players older than me in the UFC. Even if I used to be accused of losing, whatever, if I lost 2 times in a higher division. So I think what is being told to her is she has spoken to people and they say the UFC isn't interested in signing a 34-year-old or however old she is person to a contract. You're too old for what they're interested in. Which I think the real reason is they've dealt with you before and they don't want to do it again.
I mean, I think the only way she could hope for the UFC is like try to win Bellator title or PFL title or hopefully get into Contender Series or something, right?
I think if she moved to the US full time and got like just completely divorced from her current management system.
Sorry. Okay, yeah.
And then she picked up a couple wins. I think she could get in. As like a late replacement or something.
Right.
But this technique's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work at all.
I mean, her manager looks like a moron if this is him posting it.
No, it's I bet you they don't have any management at this point.
Oh, man, her husband's essentially managing her now.
Right, yeah, exactly, because she declared that she is no longer with the management and blah, blah, blah. So
I do like how she's wearing a Deep Jewels hat in the picture. Got to rep the organization I don't want to fight for.
So I don't know why she doesn't really go contact the Bellator or even like PFL. They both got the 125 division, and it's much better than sitting around and tweeting. I mean, she will get 3 fights per year or whatever, and if she wins, her name's out there. So at least that'll catch UFC's attention.
She seems like the kind of fighter that Scott Coker would love.
Oh, I think so too, and also even PFL too, because they're trying to push the issue out there for the women's division too, right? So, and it's not like that division has the heavy, load of talent. So,
plus, I mean, let's face it, it might be better for her to go to a smaller pond than go to the incredibly deep pond that is the UFC, because they were pretty good in the 25-pound division.
Right. And also you have to understand, first, let's put her on American audience, right? So be on the Bellator Showtime or PFL's on ESPN, that kind of thing must help, So they have to understand that formula. It's not that simple. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's actually pretty simple, right? So
would you recommend that she almost go to Invicta and smash a couple people?
That's fine too. But the bottom line is this: let's say if you don't get a call from New York Yankees, let's play for the Dodgers or Red Sox or even Angels, whatever that is. In that concept, what she's doing does not fit in anywhere.
I honestly believe if she fought for any promotion in the U.S., her American profile would skyrocket.
In a way, I think so too.
She's such a weird and weirdly charismatic person.
Exactly, right. So she might even get a call from Netflix, documentary filmmaker. Who knows?
Yeah. So I mean, I think she just needs to start fighting over there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's too bad. She's just totally wasting her career there. I mean, how old is she now? 36?
She's in her at least mid-30s. I don't know off the top of my head.
But, and it's annoying the fact that this is kind of telling the world that there's one person in Japan who just doesn't know what she's doing in the MMA world.
I've repeatedly said she's 35. I think she might have the most wasted career of any fighter I've ever seen.
Exactly, period, in the history of MMA. And which is really sad.
Yeah.
Really sad, Then, you know what? Let's talk about this one. A lot of people are not really talking about is Mr. Kikuiri signed with the Bellator. It's not making too many headlines there, but what do you think about this one?
I like that Bellator and PFL are now viable options for these Japanese MMA fighters.
Oh, yeah. It's here for sure.
And I think Bellator coming to Japan and then Kana Watanabe signing with them kind of started the whole, there's other options for us to make a lot of money. And I'm glad anytime a fighter goes, I'm very excited. Plus, I mean, Bellator seems to be, it feels like Pancrase is almost buddying up with Bellator now, with Kinoshita going there and now Masayuki going there. Maybe Bellator's found a new talent pool of sorts. So
I don't know. Kinoshita was supposed to maybe fight Kikuiri for the title, but now Kinoshita signed with the UFC. So
I misspoke. Kinoshita signed with the UFC. I'm sorry, I misspoke. But it is exciting to see Kikuiri there.
Yeah.
And anytime a Japanese fighter goes abroad, it raises the profile of MMA and in Japan, and I think it's nothing but good for the sport.
And face it, for welterweights, especially, or even middleweights, it's not many competition in Japan. So it's for good fighters like them. It would be much better to go outside. And the point is, compared to 135 or 145, they really don't have to go through too many tough fights to get a pretty good record. So why not just get there?
Well, based off of Kinoshita too, the guys they had him fighting, I'm like, this isn't even helping your career.
No,
you aren't getting valuable experience fighting 40-year-olds and 50, guys that are getting close to 50.
Right.
Well, you need to go and while you're in your prime, fight the best that you can.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a good signing, but it's too bad it's not really making too many headlines because considering how RIZIN fans kind of keen on Bellator, right?
Yeah.
But not even that,
It might just be the timing of it because it was around the Super Rising and Rising 30.
Mayweather and everything else. Right. But compared to how Nishikawa during that time, at the attention Kikuiri got on this signing was pretty minimum.
Yeah.
But hopefully he'll do well. And there's also a guy, Anzai, who is our client, is under Bellator contract. And we're renewing his visa now. So he's getting fights soon. So I think you will see a couple of Japanese fighters in Bellator,
Good.
So maybe not in the New Year's Eve.
I couldn't help but mention I couldn't help but notice at Rising 38 that Majima was sitting front row. How'd he come by those $30,000 tickets? Whatever they were.
Well, we don't talk about that too much, but yeah.
I just thought it was funny to see him ringside.
Right. Well, let's talk about this one championship in Japan. And actually, I think it was announced in somewhere that it's not happening in Japan this time. It was supposed to happen in actually November, I think 18th, 19th.
This
And
was my only chance to see one championship live.
mm-hmm.
To be honest, that I kind of wanted to see the shit show in person.
Okay,
I
but
wanted to see like what the crowd looked like, ask people who paid for their tickets, just to get a good feel for what one championship really is.
right, but it's not going to happen. I think it's going to happen in Singapore because it makes sense, right? For COVID rules and visas and everything else, it probably was easier.
But I thought Japan is opening up to everyone on October 11th.
Yeah, but I think, but in terms of like a work visa process, it's still taking so long. Like, for example, it usually took like a week to get this, approved visa petition. It's called Zairyu Shikaku Nintesho, but it's just taking 3-4 weeks now instead. So then they get that and send it out to FedEx, and that fighter has to go to the embassy and do the interview and give a passport and wait for a week and kind of stuff. So the whole process is taking much longer,
Okay.
So I think that's part of the reason why they have decided to move to probably Singapore, I think.
That's too bad. I was kind of looking forward to seeing what happened.
Oh, I know. And because of the fact that we have a couple of clients in this show, so I was hoping Japan too, but it's not going to happen.
Are the same fights going to happen in Singapore?
I hope so, and I think so, because the bout review has been signed on that date, but it was just set in Japan. So I think they would have to issue another bout review about agreement and saying that, it's a different place,
Yeah.
So now I want to talk about this one too, because one fight contract in UFC. Now, did you notice the announcement from Sasuke?
No.
That he's fighting again on Abu Dhabi, which is let's see. Where is that? Here we go. He is fighting a Chinese fighter named Balajin. That's how you pronounce it. But this is that one fight deal that he's fighting on day after UFC 280, which is the day that they do Road to UFC, Asia in a semifinal. So that's the day. So but he's fighting this guy, but even though he wins this, it doesn't get him to anywhere. He does not like he's going to earn a contract.
Yeah.
So he's getting one fight. So basically, UFC is creating this one fight to accommodate this Chinese fighter who's, I'm assuming, coming out of UFC PI Shanghai.
Yes.
And just creating this one fight. Now,
clear who the UFC wants to win.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is so un-UFC like move.
Mhm.
It's like, what's the meaning of this fight? Now, if this Chinese guy wins, does he get a contract? I don't know how this works,
Mhm.
I've never seen this kind of fight taking place in UFC. It's very odd to see a one-fight contract, unless if it's a contender series.
I've never even heard of a one-fight contract in the UFC before. I can't even think of one.
I actually happened to have one, which I can't review, but they were one. But I think that's about it. It's always a multi-fight deal, right? Because if you win, you want to make sure that guy will come back.
Mhm.
Right. But I'm happy for Sasuke that he's getting a second chance in the octagon, because he was a dislocation, right? He lost on the last fight. And so we'll see. But I think this is weird,
Do you think there's like an understanding, like if you win, we'll give you a contract kind of thing?
All I know is this. I've heard that this is not like contender kind of thing, that if you win or if your performance is good, they give you a contract, blah, blah, blah. None of that. I heard that it's just, it's only a one fight. We're not promising you anything.
Why wouldn't they sign you to a longer contract and then just cut you? I don't understand this at all now that I'm thinking about it more.
Yeah, then here's what it is. Then I think from Japanese point of view that he was probably thinking, or people around him probably hoping, that if Sasuke does well, that he might get a contract from UFC, because, the matchmaker might change his mind, I think that's what it is. I think that's what he's hoping for.
I don't think they're going to change their mind. I think if they wanted him, they would have offered him a multi-fight contract.
Yeah, I think so too. But hey, who knows? But let's hope that Sasuke will do well. But I think that's what they're hoping right now. you know?
They're so desperate to have a dominant Chinese fighter. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. But I've seen this Chinese guy's fight, and he's kind of boring.
Yeah.
And he's kind of old too, so it's not like he's young up and a comer. So that's why I'm a little bit puzzled about this matchmake. But I guess UFC PI Shanghai is a big facility. They probably spend lots of money to build that, so he only has to do something to make sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, Charlie, I want to talk about this one because this is a very interesting topic that I think the first time I see this coming out of the Japanese media, it says that there's a media called Bout Review in Japan.
Yeah, they've been around for a very long time.
Long time, right. And
top combat sports websites.
Exactly. And it's really rare for any Japanese website, Japanese MMA media to stand up and say something like this against sponsors of some fighters or some shows.
I would go as far as to say that maybe a criticism of Japanese websites is that they depend so much on access from the fighters and the promotions. They're usually not willing to say anything that negative at all.
Not at all, right.
Well, this is extra surprising.
Right, but this one, the Bout Review has posted it. The article says that NHK and all the other major television has declared the online casino is totally illegal. It's not a gray area. So it is illegal to participate. It is illegal to being sponsored. It's illegal to work with them and blah, blah, blah. And he's pointing out the fact that there are a lot of fighters out there that are promoting online casino or being sponsored by online casino. So this is something that they really need to be cautious about it. Now, from your legal point of view, I remember we had a lot of online casino like Full Tilt Pokers and Bulldog like in 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And one day when we woke up, all these websites were seized by the FBI, and a lot of people lost their money in that account and blah, blah, blah. Now, do you think that's going to happen in Japan?
The last time I heard about online gambling in Japan, it was related to a COVID loan situation. Did you hear the story about the guy where they accidentally sent him the money for the entire town?
Exactly. I was just going to tell you that, and for like $400,000, right? And instead of him returning that money,
he spent it all on gambling.
Right. But when the government stood up and said, right. But when the government stood up and said, we're going to do something about it, that online casino company, technically the company that handles the payment of online casino,
they gave the money back.
That money immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately, because they did not want to deal with it.
Yeah, they didn't want any attention. But take the money back. We're good. Because as people may not know, gambling's pretty much illegal in Japan. There's like weird ways to get around it. But I mean, if you go to Korakuen Hall, you can see horse gambling.
Well, here's this. Horse racing and boat racing they're legalized gambling game. So they're okay. Now, let me tell you this. Pachinko, that's like right now, it's also legalized in a way that, you know how it works. Like when you win on Pachinko, you change it with the merchandise or the coupons, and you go behind it, there's an agency that will change it to the cash.
The Pachinko is so stupid because Pachinko loophole is that, you're not winning money, you're winning little balls.
Right.
It just so happens that next door is a shop that likes to buy those balls from you.
Exactly. And that little next shop and the balls are all controlled by the ex-police officers.
Yeah.
You know? Right. So it's an obvious gambling, but those three areas are just basically a legalized gambling. Right. So from their point of view, this is a new thing, so they have to control it. And of course, the government has always been talking about the like a casino in Japan, right? So I'm sure the government wants to start doing that. I know for the fact that there's a big committee and everything else working on the casino in Japan. So once they're going to start doing the casinos and onlines and stuff, of course the government wants to take a control, right?
Right.
Will take initiative. So they will handpick the casinos, online casino they want to work with. And all the other little ones or the other third country ones will be eliminated.
Well, I'm sure there will also be a massive licensing fee.
Oh, massive
online casino.
Right. So that's something that those small online casino will not be able to handle.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So right now, I tell you this officially that yes, one of my clients, Mr. Hiramoto, is sponsored by BBet, which is the online casino. I'm against it. Officially, I told him that you really shouldn't do that. But he has decided to deal with his other people to do that. So I am not involved in that deal, but I'm still keep telling him to. I think it's better to be not to be involved.
Right.
You know, but he's not listening, so there's not much I can do. And it's not like RIZIN is prohibiting online casino sponsors from their shows. So as long as they approve, as a management, not much I can do, unfortunately. So that's how it works. I don't have that kind of rights to yank his sponsorship unless the promotion says no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable about that. Period.
Well, I feel uncomfortable because I feel like Japan's the type of country where they ignore something, then they go all in.
Oh, exactly. That's the point. The next thing you know, who knows? By tomorrow morning,
Everybody's being arrested.
Right, everybody's arrested, and all the investigators barges into their office with their cardboard boxes, collecting all the documents and stuff. So it happened many, many times in the past. So
yeah, I'd be very reluctant because, especially if all the pachinko is owned by police officers, that makes me think that they'd want to be the ones that take over online gambling.
Of course.
Yeah.
And the casino, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, that's what happened in States too, right? They banned all these casinos that they didn't know anything about, and they basically re-regulated it, right? And that's why now it's DraftKings and all these legit ones are here.
I think there's a casino in Indiana, and I think the licensing fee was $600 million. It was like an insane amount of money. So there's money to be made by people to give out casino licenses.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't think these online casinos have that kind of money. If in Japan, I imagine DraftKings has that kind of money, but not ones in Japan.
And also, you have to understand, Japanese government is known when they start something new, they will designate it certain companies to work with to start. I mean, it's not like everybody can just come in immediate open market. It's never gonna happen.
Japan's an incredibly difficult market to enter, and it's a market that is not very welcome to like disruptors.
Nope.
It's like we want the established business to do this.
Right.
People just refuse to do business with somebody new.
And the casino is something, it's not exactly has a good impressions on people, right? So this is, but I'm very, very happy to see MMA media standing up and writing, because I always felt MMA media in Japan has this little culture coming from pro wrestling world where they would have to quote unquote work with the promotions,
Right.
They don't police the promotions. They don't police the industry, but they really should. That's the media's responsibility.
I know some people who are like photographers and things in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain promotions they like can't take pictures at anymore because they made like one criticism like 10 years ago. So it seems like there's definitely an uneven relationship between the Japanese media and the MMA promotions.
I think here's what it is. I'm not going to name names, but I had many, many experiences in the past that I had a little difficulty creating a fight for my client. And the promotion came back and says, well, the president found out that you said something bad about our promotion. So it took a while for us to approve your client's fight. But which I think it's ridiculous, because opinion is opinion, and so I mean, if that's going to prevent from making to pursue with the contract they agreed, it makes zero sense to me. But that has happened,
Yeah,
in ancient countries.
It's so stupid. If there's no criticism, you start looking like one championship and it just looks fake. Like, there's no way this is real.
You have to have a criticism, and there's always, I went to the business school, and one of my professors told me that there's always a business chance in criticism and the claims from the customers.
Yeah.
The complaints from the customers, because that's where you have something that maybe you could work on.
Yeah.
So I don't get that mind that you don't like to take criticism. You ban media who criticize you and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see this bout to review writing about this.
Me too.
Yeah. So all right. So do we cover everything we're supposed to talk today?
I think so. I don't think there's anything else.
Good. So yeah. So
I will say my closing comments was I was kind of skeptical about Super RIZIN and RIZIN 38 before it went down. I think it went off very well. I think that RIZIN 38 especially was a great event.
Mm-hmm.
I was very happy to see that the people stayed through the event, and I think it's a good sign of things to come.
Yeah, I hope so. And also, let's talk about the fact that they are going to come back with another cage show. They
Yeah.
have decided Landmark is going to be the cage show,
Yeah.
It only makes sense. I think it's good to have the cage show. So, and, obviously shows in October, shows in this November, and they're going to do obviously show in December. So, so one show per month. So hopefully that's going to make a lot of fighters active.
Oh, I think we have to, the most recent comment. I think we kind of have to address that.
Let's do that, yeah.
Ren's fighting Dominator.
Well, like I said publicly, I was against it. I mean, because from the regular sports perspective, the guy has only 3 fights, right? So he should be fighting somebody with less than 5 fights. But obviously, I will tell you this on the record that we did have a few guys' name came up, but these guys are just way below the level of RIZIN. So it was just so embarrassing to bring these guys up just to let Ren fight. So I did actually convince him to not take this fight, but after that, he changed his mind after talking to the coaches and everybody else that he wants to do it. So,
do you think he saw the Bay Noah fight?
Exactly. So I think as long as he doesn't let the guy to take him down to the ground, he feels that he probably has a good chance to.
So I thought Bay Noah was incredibly close to beating him several times.
I thought so too. And in terms of striking game, obviously Hiramoto is way better,
Yeah.
But again, I'm in this business for almost 30 years, and I know it's not about those striking and grappling. It's about the total MMA. And in that sense, yeah, Yamato is better. But I'll tell you this on the record that I don't know how he got the nickname Dominator, because I have never seen a fight that he has dominated before. So in that sense, let's try to do that. I mean,
I always love it when the fighters' nicknames have nothing to do with anything they've ever done before.
Yeah, exactly.
Never dominated anybody. What's going on? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a lot of people might see as a lopsided matchmake. But I think it's come to the point to where that if he was going to lose, I think it would be better to lose against a guy who has a very, very, very good record.
Yeah.
So some chump, from the feeder show who just happened to have a 2-1 record kind of thing,
Yes, WMMA scene now brought up the fact that I love to talk about ironic nicknames. There's a championship named the Arm Collector who's never won by armbar.
Yeah, who's the Arm Collector?
She was a fighter in one championship, and she's never won by armbar, ever. It's why is that your nickname? It makes no sense.
I don't know. Maybe she used to work with artificial arms. Who knows, right?
Who knows? Oh, there we go. It's
Anita Kaya. Yeah.
Yeah, but
no, let's go back to this one championship since you talked about it. But they're supposed to show in November in Japan, so now they're probably going to be in Singapore mid-November. So that's actually less than 2 months away.
So they got to plan some stuff.
They should be announcing fights already, and my clients have signed about agreement, so they should be, announcing the fight soon.
I saw one fight announcement. Tell me what you think about this. Did you see that at Deep, Saudi Oshima is fighting Mizuki Furese for the microweight title?
I saw that. Yeah,
that seems like a mismatch to me if I've ever seen.
Charlie, I'll tell you on the record, because I'm with Miki Motono here in Vegas for this MMA fighting. Training abroad with Abema TV. Miki is also fighting that show, and I can't tell you who, but right now in Japanese women's MMA, it's just not enough fighters. Miki's 115, but still has only one fighter on the roster. So she had one choice on this 115, or go down to 110 to take somebody else.
Is she fighting at 115?
No, 110.
Thank God. I'm like, if she's fighting Mika Nagano again,
no,
I cry.
No. Exactly, that's the point. And most of the fighter has fought the same opponent twice. So yeah, I think women's MMA now in Japan, they need more competitors to come into the sport itself.
Still better than it was 5 years ago. I think it's getting better, but
you know what? But I really don't think so, Charlie. I'll tell you why. Because yesterday I was at a syndicate MMA. Before Miki's private lessons with John Wood, there was 2 kids classes going on. Okay, one kids BJJ, 5 to 7 years old. One kids MMA, maybe 5 to 10 years old. Okay, kids BJJ about 20, kids MMA about 40 kids. Now I ask same question to Miki, who's at the AACC, who's very famous for having a big kids wrestling school, right? Classes, bunch of wrestling kids, like 30, 40 kids. They also do kids MMA class. I asked Motono that, hey, how many kids in the kids MMA class? Maybe 5.
Yeah.
Now what that means is like even the wrestlers are not interested in kids MMA. Like
Right.
MMA. You know what I mean? That's sad. It's the other way around here. And I see a 5-year ago doing 1, 2, 3 single leg and pound. So I'm thinking like this girl is going to beat up their boyfriend when they're like 7th grade, right? So I mean, it's just, that's a joke. But the point is that it's just that the bottom like foundations of MMA as a sport is just not there.
I think the problem is the women's division in Japan has high level. There's no middle level. There's high level and low level. There's nobody in the middle.
Exactly, right. It's always been like that. It's always been Mizuki, Kanako, right? Hamasaki, and that's it. Like everybody else is like all the way down kind of stuff.
Take Saudi and Miki, for example. They both have been doing judo since they were 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Mizuki Furuse, who has no combat background.
Exactly, right.
So I think Oshima should just take her down and rip her arm off.
Mm-hmm.
But who am I? Who am I to
say? Here's what it is. I pointed out to the with another the podcast I do for Nico Nico Doga is this, that like how people are saying that breaking down, like a lot of people watching that show, so that's going to create a bigger number of like athletes populations in MMA and blah blah blah. It's just the other way around, because let's say, for example, like Takeya Mizugaki, who was a kendo athlete to the end of high school. He looked at the shooter, he thought it was very great, so he wanted to try MMA. Now, Kenny Florian was a soccer player until the end of college, because he had a little BJJ experience, but he saw the MMA boosting, so he wanted to try MMA. Now, do you think top athletes from other sports would look at the breaking down and says, "Oh, I want to try MMA"? No, it's the other way around.
Entertainers. So what I've noticed from people that are trying out for breaking down, it is either people with 0 fighting experience or people with like a little bit of fighting experience. Like, this is how I become famous. This is how I become a TV like celebrity. This is how I become a YouTuber. This is how I get make it. They're not doing it to become a fighter. They're doing it to get famous.
Exactly. They're going to be a TV talent. They're not willing to go through rigorous trainings, and they're not willing to puke and go through tears.
I don't think they'll be training at all. I think they're practicing what to say, how to get their attention.
Exactly. So that's my issue. Is this my point when I'm getting into this? Like, Miki Motono was the only applicant for this Abema TV project. This is the project that pay all your planes, food, whatever, everything to train here. They don't have to pay for nothing. And there's only one girl applying for it, opposed to a 200 plus the guy fighters, the male fighters. So that tells clearly that women fighter and women athletes in Japan are not really interested in MMA at all.
It's
like,
it's ridiculous to me that other women didn't sign up for that program.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, even like let's say, I wouldn't recommend it, but let's say, I can go to Mexico for free, so let's have fun. That's fine. But even that, nobody applied for it, right? I mean, it's just, I don't understand it. Like, that's what I'm saying this publicly all the time, that I think today's younger generations of people are just too close-minded. They only like to be in small fish in small pond.
Yeah.
I think Mikuru and Kai's supporters are like that too. I like Mikuru and Kai as a fighter, and they're good. That's why I wanted to try to go them to do something outside Japan too, not only within Japan, but their fans are always talking about how famous they are only in Japan. And I even got one email from one of their fans, a young boy, saying that I have a 0 problem not being able to speak English. I can go down to the convenience shop and I can buy anything I want. I can go see movies without speaking English. He had a whole long letter that he wrote to me that there's no reason for us to go outside Japan. So stop saying about my hero Asakura, fighting outside Japan, blah, blah, blah. This is like 21 years old. I don't get that,
Back to Motono, how's she doing in the U.S.? Does it look pretty... When is that program expected to air? Do you have any idea?
This one will be aired in about a month.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to contrasting it with the Itsuki Hirato one.
Because
they both come from the judo background, but I feel like personality-wise, they're incredibly different.
Totally different.
So I'm interested to see what's going on.
Well, let me tell you about this Miki then. Let's talk about Miki Motono. It's funny because I had the dinner with her last night, and I asked her this question. So, why are you doing this sport? Do you want to try to make money or make a living out of this? And she's like, oh, you don't know. I think most of the fighters in Japan, the girl fighters I'm talking about, maybe they want to test their skills or they want to be famous. So I'm like, she's never really watched the UFC or thought about the possibility of getting there or contenders or even other promotions. Now, this is the first time in her life that in States, just because she trained with all the other fighters, that realized that, there are UFC out there, people making money out of this. So this is really a first time. Now, she works at the gas station, she told me. And she also teaches private. And she also does assistant for dentists once a week. And she has a sponsor that will cover their rent. So she's okay. She can spend more time on training. But that's where she's at right now. But she really didn't have any other goal after that. Just a vague goal that, oh, maybe I want to be famous.
Yeah.
So I asked her, so do you think you'll be famous if you fight for RIZIN? Famous where, though? Famous all over the world? Famous all over Japan? Not even that. Famous among your friends? That's probably about it, right? So now she's first time realizing that there are possibility that she can actually make a living out of this.
That's kind of interesting because they're not the same age, but her judo senpai is Kana Watanabe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of interested in maybe if seeing Kana go and get paid 60,000, 80,000 to fight in the US might have been eye-opening for her. But
since you mentioned that, I will tell her that today. I forgot about that. I mean, I've never talked to her about the money yet because I try not to do that first. But after that, I have to, because then they have to realize what kind of money you can make. And this is the way you pay rent.
And then you got to factor in that it's like, what, 150 yen to $1 now?
So I actually did talk about money in the sense that I kind of asked her about how much money she's making on sponsorship. And I basically said that instead of maybe covering that money on rent, with that's total money for a little bit more, you could come to States twice to train, 6 months kind of stuff. Do you ever thought about that kind of stuff? I mean, they can fight at the end of your 3 months training and you can little money to come back. So it's not like you're spending everything, nothing coming in. So there's always option like that too, right? So, but I think this is eye-opener for Miki. So yes, I think, I forgot about Kana Watanabe, is her senpai, older member of the club. So I will talk to her about the money today.
Because I was talking, my wife likes Miki. She's a fan of hers. And she has like a good, it's not like Itsuki. She has like her own type of charisma, but she does have a charisma. And I think she has a good frame for 115.
She does. She's a few inches more taller, but she does have a good frame. Yeah.
Because Saudi Oshima is clearly too small.
Too small. No. And she's maybe too big for 105 and a bit small for 115. But in that sense, it's just much better to build her up and do 115. Yeah.
From those years of judo, it looks like she already has a good muscle base.
Mm-hmm.
She looks athletic, is what I'm getting at. It looks like she.
For example, right now she trains with Joanne Wood, who's 125, right? At flyweight. And also she also trained with Shiho Van Hoosjan, who used to fight for Van Class, but she's coming back from the injury. And she's 105. So you can clearly tell that she's bigger than Shiho, but smaller than Joanne. So it's just basically it's 115. So I had to talk with John Wood yesterday too, that his basic answer is like, hey, if you want to have a career, then it's got to be 115. And simple as that. There's no career in terms of making money, making living on 105.
Yeah, no, because there is no living at 105.
No, exactly.
Unless you get, because I say that because one championship's 105 isn't 105.
No.
If you're fighting 105,
115, right. So if Itsuki were to go to UFC or wherever, you would have to do 115.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think she'll make that. But anyway, so let's last question. What are your thoughts on the notion that RIZIN should pay for popular and not free MMA fighters instead of boxers like Eddie Alvarez and Nate Diaz? They would never be able to afford that. No. I mean, I know exactly how much like these guys are getting paid, and it's just way out of range.
Nate Diaz has to be making millions to fight, right?
Millions. And Eddie's not cheap either.
And it's not I mean, I didn't like that they're using Mayweather, but they seem to be able to make money using Mayweather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm to Rising will die. Yeah, I actually compared to Mayweather, sure, it's not a big money, right? But Sakakiba once told me that he will make money on Mayweather. So he has this scheme in Japan that if he brings in Mayweather, I don't know, sponsorship or whatever that is, that there's a business model there that he can be sure that he makes money back
And
or profit.
as much as we criticize it, Mayweather does have cross-market appeal. People know who he is. Common people and even MMA fans in Japan likely do not know who Eddie Alvarez is.
Yep.
Unless they were a fan from the Dream days.
Right.
And some of the young people, I'm going to say, I know one girl who's a diehard UFC fan, MMA fan. She knows who Nate Diaz is, but I don't think anyone else knows who Nate Diaz is.
No.
I don't know if Nate Diaz's personality would be popular in Japan. I don't know. Maybe.
Point I think the non-Japanese fans has to understand here is that MMA hasn't established that kind of a place in the society yet. Boxing is still more bigger, like or even soccer or baseball. So let's say, I know this won't happen. Let's say if the Aaron Judge will decide to do a fight in MMA in RIZIN, I bet you Sakakiba will make more money on that than, unfortunately, even Conor McGregor in a way. So
we can't. The two examples. You're not going to make money on Eddie Alvarez. You're going to lose money.
Yeah, you will lose money. Yeah.
And there's no upside for them because Nate Diaz and Eddie Alvarez would probably win.
Yeah, exactly. It depends who they fight, but yeah, more than likely, right? So, and yeah, exactly. And plus, I have a feeling the Nate will not pass the custom anywhere.
It was like when his brother fought for Pride and all the results kept getting overturned.
That too. So, but yeah, I understand his question. Yeah, sure. Does he got to waste some money for Mayweather? That's a very legit question. I kind of feel the same. But from Sakakiba's point of view, he has a way to make money on Mayweather, but not the others. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Anyway, so I think we talked for an hour and 15 minutes now almost. So
perfect.
All right, so let's talk again in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you later.
Have a good day.
You too.